right, everybody. Welcome back to Mondays Down South. We got Zach and Cy here as always, but boys, I don't know. This is my last recording from the South. Because from here on out, I'll be recording from the new home in New York City. So what does that mean? Are we Tuesdays over East, or what's the new name? We can't be Mondays Down South anymore.
We got to do a complete rebrand. Cy, what are your thoughts?
I think we stick to the OG, guys. I mean, regardless, we all grew up in Virginia. We all went to school in the South. We've all lived in the South. That's how this all started. I'm not trying to change things up too much. This is our OG situation. You know, when we blow up one day, we're gonna remember the original days. I don't want to be changing our names up right now. That's how I feel, at least.
All right. I support it, Zach.
I don't know. I kind of like the Wednesdays over East. Plus, we could be Woes, right? We could be like Woes, WOE. I kind of like that.
That just has cool. No ring.
Nice Drake shout out too. I know you love your Drake size, so that's always an option.
Running through the six with my woes, as Zach says.
Exactly.
There we go. Well, I don't know if I don't have too much before we jump into the content, but just another week in the NFL, always fun. Another great Sunday night game. We hit our picks. Obviously, for those that don't know, since we don't send our parlay on the pod, but week 3 was a good luck charm. Hit on the parlay, Saints money line, Cardinals covered in a nail biter. Really nervous there. And then obviously the insane Green Bay San Francisco game where Aaron Rodgers with 37 seconds gets us into range for Mason Crosby to pay us out a little bit here. So we're getting hot, boys. We're getting hot.
It's a good thing.
Hey, and cheers if you guys have a drink for not hedging. We were thinking about hedging, and this conversation was initiated by probably the most risk averse person in the group, which is Ev. And so, we were looking at a variety of options. We were 2-0 at this point. And obviously we needed that third game, that Green Bay game, to hit our parlay. So, we were entertaining the idea of potentially taking San Francisco to a certain amount to kind of lock in a guaranteed amount, just in case, San Francisco won. But ultimately we looked at the odds, and all three of us got in a joint phone call about 5 minutes before game time, gents. And we said,
I was a little toasted by that point after 6 hours of football.
We're swinging for the fences, and that's what we did, boys. And that deserves a shout out because we dug our heels in, and we didn't second guess ourselves. We stayed true to what we believed in. And Ev, that's why the Matrix works.
The Matrix works. 2 big time money line underdog hits. I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling white hot. We just got to run it back this week.
We are lying a little bit if we're being honest here, because our conversation, Zach, was not that we weren't going to hedge. It was we were going to hedge a small amount, but then we realized when we were going to hedge a small amount that the payoff was less than we thought. So we were being slightly risk averse. So if we're being completely honest, we were willing to take a small hedge, which would have cost us a couple bucks here and there. But ultimately it worked out. And I don't think any of us were really keen on it anyway. All I know is the Matrix works, and let's keep it rolling. And
all right, boys.
Disclaimer for anyone that picks based off our picks. We are not subject to any fines or penalties for.
We are not financial advisors. We are not.
But shout out my boy Marty, who's been following our parlays for the last 2 weeks. He is a very happy man with Mondays Down South.
We have to show Marty this clip. Yeah. We have to. He's gonna die. He's gonna laugh so hard.
So we appreciate his support. And you'll see when the pick segment roll around, we put up some good numbers across the board, not just with our parlay. But we'll get into that later. But let's jump into it. I don't know. I mean, the first team that I kind of wanted to talk about, just because I think it's kind of top of mind, at least the games that I had in viewing sight at the bar, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if you guys caught, that was probably the game I watched most closely just because it was on the biggest TV, but it was they are unbearable to watch. I think football is entertaining always. I think even when the bad teams play, even if you're watching the Jaguars, I feel like they're entertaining. But the Steelers, I generally cannot watch them play. Obviously I have Najee in a fantasy league. He had 6 solid runs get called back because of holding penalties or just general penalties. So between that and Ben, who is just doesn't have it anymore, the constant checkdowns, although I do love the 19 targets that Najee Harris got out of the backfield. But they're unbearable to watch. And they're just genuinely awful. I don't know if you guys have a different take, but like, oh man.
I don't think they have a high ceiling, but I think they'll be better in future weeks. I mean, they did beat the Bills week 1, so let's not forget that they have proven they can win a big game. But it almost seems like in 3 games in, it's early to jump to conclusions. But maybe they'll play up the competition and play down. And honestly, that was them last year too, because they lost to the Bengals last year early in the season, but we're beating good teams. Still though, like I don't think their ceiling is very high in the AFC. Ben Roethlisberger is just I hate to say it, but he's done. Like he's just struggling, and that's where I'm at with that. I don't even really want to talk about him too much because you're right, Ev. Like there's not really much to talk about. One thing I will say in their defense is Deontay Johnson was hurt coming to that game, and Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt in that game. So that's probably why Najee Harris got 19 targets, because basically it was just him and Chase Claypool as far as the offense goes. And with an old Ben Roethlisberger, without that loaded core around them and a bad offensive line, it's going to be really hard for them to like do anything offensively. Their defense was fine. I mean, 24 points isn't great, but the Bengals offense is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. They got a lot of young weapons. So I think the Pittsburgh's defense is still one of the best in the league. I just think like their offense only can do so much with Ben at the helm, because they have a bunch of targets, but their offensive line and Ben Roethlisberger is a tree in the pocket. So there's just not really much they can do with that situation.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of take it a different way. I think obviously Mike Tomlin, I believe this is his 13th or 14th season coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers, or somewhere around there. And he's never had a losing season. I certainly think this is his losing season. I actually do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers do finish 4th in that division. I know it's a long season. We haven't seen a lot of data unfold, but it does beg kind of a more overarching question. I'm curious to get y'all's opinion on it. Ev had mentioned last week on the podcast that, Drew Brees leaving the Saints, like how did we not expect that system getting more, well-oiled now that Jameis Winston, a younger guy, can kind of air out the deep ball and really open the offense back up. It was kind of like an archaic mindset, right? Just like believing, Drew Brees, no matter how old he is going to need to be that guy, despite the fact that it was a check down offense, right? So it begs the question, do older quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger and Matt Ryan are at this point in time, are they holding their teams back? Or do you think that there's so many other things in play, whether it's coaching or whether it's, a poor offensive line or a bad defense? Do you pin it on those veteran QBs at this point, or do you think it's something else?
I think I don't think it's the biggest problem. I think the offensive line is the biggest problem. But when you combine that with, like Cy mentioned, a quarterback that can't move, that's dangerous. But I definitely think he's really holding them back, especially with the weapons they have. And I mean, yeah, a lot of them were out this week, but that receiving core is just ridiculous. And obviously now with Najee, Freiermuth, I mean, he's not there yet. Obviously, he's still a young rookie, but like, to have that core of weapons and then have Ben back there who also can't move in the pocket with a line that can't block, like, he's really holding them back.
So I was going to spring a spontaneous idea for you guys live during the pod, and you guys have already set it up perfectly. I don't know. I want to give a little shout out to the fantasy footballers because they've inspired this. It's a podcast I always listen or watch and listen to. And they have a live segment where they do a water bet. So if something comes up and they feel like strongly about one thing versus the other, they'll do a water bet with somebody else in the group. Zach, you said you don't think the Steelers are going to finish 500. I'll make a lunch bet with you that the Steelers finish over 500. And if you want to take the under and break even on them having an even record.
And then in 8, well, I guess there's no more 8-8 seasons, so there's really not going to be a push. Okay, so over or under 500. I'll take you up on that bet, and as long as it's wings at the Wing Factory, because that's a little bit more implicating than a lunch bet. That's now like 3 lunch bets because I heard it's pricey these days.
Perfect, works for me. We got a new segment or a new thing added to the podcast for going future weeks. So keep that in mind, boys. All right,
love it.
Another game.
Cy, pick one then.
You want me to throw it on? Okay. Yeah. I want to talk about I don't want to talk about my Colts because I just want to talk about my Colts. Ev, I'm not going to throw you out there. You can talk about your team later if you want.
Yeah, not much to talk about.
Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers with 30 seconds left. making that drive at the end of the game. I know we briefly mentioned Sunday night, but how can we not talk about that? They balled out at the end there. Rodgers making that drive at the end was honestly, I didn't expect anything less. As soon as they gave him the ball back, I was like, the Packers are going to win this game. I didn't even question it for a second, because how many times has Rodgers done that? And how good is Davante Adams that even at the end of the game, when you know he's getting the ball, you can't stop him. Like, they have three guys around him, and Rodgers just throws it in between three people. He catches it in the middle of the field. And then Mason Crosby with that clutch field goal. I got to give a shout out to both the Packers and the 49ers, though, because both teams played really well. That was a terrific game. They both showed that they can be legit contenders in the NFC this year. And that was the Niners playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think their ceiling might even increase down the road with Trey Lance playing. So that was a fun game. Shout out to the Packers for pulling it out and giving us that big parlay payoff. But that was just great football. That's what I got to say. And let's not get anything twisted. Davante Adams is the best receiver in football, and arguably, in my opinion, a top 3 player in football. Like, I'm going to go that far, at least skill position, because he can completely individually change an offense for a team as a receiver. And obviously having Rodgers helps, but keep in mind, there's not a lot behind Davante Adams in that offense. There's not anybody else that's like super scary receiving wise. And he still goes out there every single week and puts up ridiculous numbers and is always there in the big moments. It's just, I just don't think he'll ever get enough credit for how good he is.
Yeah, Sai, this is definitely something we actually agree on today, which is good. So we're building that repertoire again. But it's like Davante Adams, he can really do anything. I mean, there's nothing that guy can't do. He's a master at lateral mobility, so he's untouchable off the line of scrimmage. And I mean, it's like my favorite route to watch is the relationship that Rodgers and Davante Adams have with that back shoulder throw, like that 15 to 20 yard back shoulder throw. It's effortless. It's just on a dime, and there's nothing the corner can do. And I mean, this is a very respectable San Francisco 49er defense, you know? And so I think overall, I mean, just incredible game to watch, but also on top of it, the resiliency. He took a huge shot. I mean, a shot that should have obviously been flagged, no doubt about it. Or no doubt about it, I guess I should say. But overall, it's I think just him coming back onto the field, 5-10 minutes later, and then making those crucial plays. I believe it was 2 receptions in a row that led to about 30-ish yards down the field, and then set up that 55-yarder for Mason Crosby. Just otherworldly. And the fact that Rodgers was able to just kind of drop it in there on that first 20-yard throw over like right in between like 3 corners. It's unbelievable. It's perfection. And it's Rodgers doing Rodgers. But Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad Size shout out the 49ers though as well, because that really just was great football across the board. The Niners kind of got punched in the mouth a little bit, and they were down to like no running backs other than Trey Sermon, who hadn't really even been active. And, they impressed me as well. I saw a hilarious tweet. I don't know if you guys heard during the telecast when I guess Collinsworth mentioned something about, or I guess it was Kyle Shanahan's quote about how they're going to look for situations to get Lance in the game or something like that. And they mentioned the right time to get him in the game. I saw a tweet after the game that was like, "Oh, we're getting into the red zone. Let's put in our good quarterback now." Yeah, I'm excited to see what Lance can do. Although Jimmy just isn't very good. But anyway, obviously agree on the Packers. Who better to have than Aaron, Davante, and Mason Crosby, who's such a clutch kicker in that situation, and the time management too. Like they weren't going to the sidelines because they couldn't, obviously, because San Francisco was so tight on the sidelines. So Aaron just understanding the clock, knowing that they have just enough time to hit the middle of the field where they're not going to be guarding him. Yep, exactly. And to get it down to no time on the clock, line it up for a Mason Crosby field goal. I loved his fist pump after they got into field goal range, because you knew he was like, man, I just did that so perfectly between just the plays on the field, but also the clock management. And so I thought about this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and his complete trust in Crosby, because I think
Yeah, he doesn't have quite the leg he used to, but if you're getting it under 53, it's a guarantee it's going in. I thought about this during the game. Zach, you kind of alluded to it. Is Aaron to Davante the best quarterback to wide receiver connection of our, maybe not our lifetime, but at least our lifetime of watching football in terms of the chemistry? I have one other in mind that can compete with it. But like Zach, you mentioned it, man, they're just so in sync. It's insane. Any others come to mind?
It's a very underrated combination because of just the repertoire of things and routes that they can run so comfortably. Especially, I think they've mastered that the back shoulder throw 15, 20 yards down the field. It's just amazing. It's kind of like a flick of the wrist from Rodgers. I mean, he's so used to throwing that ball, and it's a hard ball to throw. I'd say some competitors though is Brady Moss, especially back in '07. I think that's certainly an option, especially with their 23. I think Randy had taken, or he had collected 23 touchdown receptions that year and a ton of yards. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously Harrison and Peyton Manning, I think, is another big one, right? But outside of those two, I mean, it really does get close, and I think I could put them up there in the top 3 for sure.
I don't want to be biased, but because Peyton and Harrison essentially played their whole careers together and they both ended up being Hall of Famers, and the consistency of those two, because when you talk about the Rodgers Davante Adams connection, those two are arguably almost the same kind of dynamic, because Brady Moss was a lot of Moss beating people down the field. Not that they didn't connect on other routes, but like Brady Moss was just Moss, like just completely outrunning people, and more often than not, the connection that Rodgers and Davante Adams share is actually very similar to what, in my opinion, Manning and Harrison had.
Yeah.
Because they would do the back, like, and keep in mind, this is back in the era where those two were pioneers of this passing movement, right? Because before Manning took over, before Brady took over, before these guys started coming into the league, before Rodgers came in down the road, passing the football was not your go-to methodology. Back then, running was still a big part of it. So I think Manning and Harrison kind of set up the standard for that report. And I mean, they're Hall of Famers for a reason. They were, if you go back and watch their highlights, it was something special. I know I'm biased, but
that's a good one.
I would pick them just because of the consistency of doing it for over a decade together, or close to a decade together. But in my opinion, I would put Adams and Rodgers right behind them, because Brady and Moss obviously would be very high on that list, if not number one, if they played more seasons together, but they only did it for 1 year. So that's the only my knock against that.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. Brady Gronk is actually sneaky, another good one.
That's a good one.
But it's just like the chemistry of it is just so beautiful to watch. I notice it on Sunday. I mean, obviously you notice it every week when they play, but it just like, was like, man, it's crazy. The other one I thought is Ben and AB in their prime. They had a nice back shoulder connection as well, but yeah, Zach, you got a game you want to shift to?
Yeah, actually, well, speaking of amazing quarterback play, how about Matt Stafford with 4 touchdown passes against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And I tell you what, the Bucs have kind of been through a lot, man. They have a great defense, but that DB group has been tested, but it's been tested by fantastic offenses. And I'm not trying to, throw Atlanta into the mix there, because I know they've already played them. But I mean, staying with that specific game in SoFi Stadium, what an incredible performance. And I will give out a quick shout out to Cy, because he did call the Rams victor. I believe me and you both said that Tampa Bay was going to cover that 1-point spread comfortably, Ev. I think that was what we had
No,
said.
it was just Cy, Zach. Don't try and take credit for this. It was only Cy.
It was, yeah, I was going to say. But regardless, it was a great game, and Matt Stafford just continuing to just ball out. More so to Cooper Kupp than Robert Woods. I was just recently sharing with a friend that I was like the 10th, 11th, and 12th draft pick in all 4 of my fantasy leagues this year. So as the 4th round was coming back in that snake, I had the option in every draft to get Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, and I got Robert Woods in 3 of them, and I didn't even get Cooper in the other one. So little unfortunate circumstances, but overall just great play. Sai, what do you think? What do you think of the game and everything?
Honestly, if Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp had 5 to 10 seasons together, they would be on that list of connections. Because as soon as we said that, I was thinking to myself, they played 3 games together and they are unstoppable. And they're doing back shoulder connections 3 games into the season. I guess the way to do it is to have breakfast with each other, because apparently these two have been having breakfast with each other since Matt Stafford got there. I just love the Rams because they keep making me look good, and I love Cooper Kupp because they keep making me look good. Because our first week, I said like, I think the Rams, even with them being considered a good team, like, were underrated, because I legitimately believe that they could be a perennial Super Bowl threat. And they've done nothing so far to disprove me otherwise. And I legitimately felt that Cooper Kupp with a guy like Stafford was going to turn up, because a couple years ago he did it with Goff. Like, if you can do it with Goff, you can do it with Stafford, and that's exactly what's happened. That wasn't even a close game. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, it says 10-point game, but if you look at it at the end, the Bucs were down, I think, 3 scores, and they scored at the end to make it a 10-point game. They went and just dismantled the Super Bowl champions in that game. And the Rams don't look like they have a weakness. Like, their defense has been terrific. Even with Darrell Henderson out, they still ran the ball well enough to keep the Bucs on their heels against a really good run defense. And then nobody is able to stop Stafford. And this is without, like, Woods having an amazing game. Like, Higbee stepped up this week, but Woods is good enough to have good weeks as well. Like, that offense and that defense does not seem to have flaws. That is the most well-rounded team in the NFL 3 weeks into the season, in my opinion. And I actually don't even think it's close right now. So really, really, really impressed by what the Rams did, and got a lot. I love watching them play, man. They're so fun to watch.
Yeah, couldn't say it better. I just am kicking myself so much for not, like, investing in Cooper Kupp, period. I have him nowhere, but it's like, as an FCS college football guy, I loved Cooper Kupp coming out of college, and then he, like, had a good season. I feel like I got bored of him. I realized I have a huge problem in fantasy football, because I had him, like, a ton early on just because I loved him. I was like, FCS guy, this guy's awesome. But then after someone's done well for me, I, like, feel like I need to go, like, get some, like, just, like, stop using them in the next season. I have that problem with Derrick Henry too. It's like, I can't let myself have nice things. It's like everyone sleeps on Derrick Henry every year, so I'll draft him, but I always trade him because I don't know if I'm just bored of having the same guys year over year. And I'm like, dude, just stick with a good thing. And, like, Cooper Kupp's the same way. So I'm kicking myself for not being more invested in Cooper Kupp. But yeah, they're fun to watch, man, and they're gonna be tough to beat.
I think I got him in 3 leagues, because it's like I said, that flip when he was going, like, the 4th, 5th round, I was like, oh, you're gonna give me Cooper Kupp as my second wide receiver with Matt Stafford as quarterback? I'm gonna take that every single time I can get it. And so far, I'm very, very happy with that decision.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that in my Raleigh league, he was, like, one of the guys. It's a 10-team league, so it's a little different. You get more guys that slip, but he was, like, the guy that, like, no one wanted for some reason. And then my buddy Lou landed with him. He wasn't even that happy about it, but he was like, well, I mean, I'm going to take him here. He fell so far. And I was like, man, I'm embarrassed to say that, to be honest with you. I'm, very embarrassed, Zach.
Well, speaking of fantasy football, I normally don't draft a kicker in any of my leagues. And then I'll after the waiver wire is over each week, I'll take a look at, like, the matchups with the kickers, and I'll just kind of select one that I think is going to perform well against a particular defense, or at least we'll have more opportunities, right, for field goal opportunities. So, obviously I think I might have to change that strategy watching Justin Tucker launch one from, was it 66 yards? What a beast. Did you guys catch the end of the Lions Ravens game?
Dude, I thought he missed it, like, way short. I was actually standing next to, I think, a Ravens fan. Like, he had walked up to watch the TV that we were looking at, and I saw it, like, come down when it hit the crossbar. And I don't know what I saw, but it looked like it was, like, 5 yards short. So I turned away and I was like, oh, wow, man, he's not even close. And then I looked back and I was like, wait, it went in? I was like, wait, it bumped the crossbar and went in. I was like,
the craziest part is the offensive line and the team around him was celebrating before the ball even went in. I think they thought, like, wait, he hit this. And, like, first of all, let's Justin Tucker just hit the kick of the century, because he just tied or beat the NFL record on a game winner. Like, this wasn't just, like, some random one they took at the end of a half because they could. They did it to win the game. But what were the Ravens doing that they had to kick a game-winning field goal against the Lions, where they had only scored 16 points up to that point? Like, that is the part that blows my mind. Like, the Ravens have played so well the first 2 weeks, like, or, so well in the sense of, like, they've shown out in good games. They beat the Chiefs, where they have a close one with the Raiders, which is fine. And then you have, like, you almost lose to the Lions. Like, that part makes no sense to me. But shout out to Justin Tucker, man. Like, that was something you'll never see. We probably won't see that for decades again. Like, if that.
Yeah, much less on like you said, a game-winning field goal. But bumping it over, Chiefs Chargers, man. Chargers. We've been waiting for someone to step up and look like they might be able to challenge the Chiefs in that division. Does that make you think the Chargers are the next team to be able to do it? That was an impressive win. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Chiefs kind of handed that game away in the first quarter with, Mahomes pick, a Hill fumble, and then I think Edward and someone else fumbled, I think. Anyway, but the Chargers, man, Herbert leading the game-winning drive there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I respect Andy Reid and the trust he has for his players, because when CEH fumbled the ball, and I believe that was the first turnover of the game, I could be wrong with that, but I believe that was the first. After the way the Chiefs had lost the week prior with the CEH fumble, if I were a coach, he's benched for the rest of the game. So I respect the fact that Reid threw him back in there. He knew he was going to be a focal point of that offense, and especially setting up the play action. And, obviously the Chiefs had some success with that, but turnovers. This is something that the Chiefs will certainly clean up. I still think by far that they're the divisional favorite. And I think the Chargers have kind of solidified themselves as a wild card team. The reason they have, though, is we all kind of knew the offense was going to continually expand, right? Mike Williams is taking kind of more of a dominant role as that number 2 receiver. Big jump ball guy, put in great situations with that in the end zone. Keenan, obviously one of the best route runners in football. No question their offense is making strides forward, but their defense with a healthy Derwin James has been exciting to see. I tell you what. And I think they've just drafted really well defensively, and all power to them. So really, really excited about this team as they make strides forward. Very young team. They will make more mistakes. So I think as a result of that and their division, I mean, let's not make no mistake about it. They play in a pretty difficult division as well. You're looking at Denver and Las Vegas, who are both undefeated right now. Now we'll see how long that lasts, but regardless, it's going to be hard for the Chargers the rest of the season. I still think Kansas City comfortably wins that division though. But what do you guys think?
I think the Chargers are going to be a really good spot for a wild card team for sure. Like that I don't dispute, but the Chiefs so far, the reason that they've lost the games they've lost has been, and this isn't to take anything away from the teams that have beaten them, because that's extremely impressive to beat Patrick Mahomes and that offense with Kelsey and Hill and everybody. But it's really been them shooting themselves in their own foot, like pulling a Plexico burst. Like they genuinely are just continuously like doing things that I don't expect them to do. We've watched them for years, and they are not generally a team that turns the ball over. Like that is not what we see out of the Chiefs. And it is surprising because they're like a high flying offense. Like, so you would expect more turnovers, but they've been very good at keeping the ball at bay. And like, it was a 1 possession game after they turned the ball over 3 times in the game, or I think it might've been 4 times in the game. I'm not 100% positive, but at least 3 times in the game. And it was still a 1 possession game. Like that just goes to show, like, if they were able to like clean up their own errors, and of course interceptions are going to happen, but the fumbles are the ones that get me, right? Like if you're going to fumble a ball that's very like you're very capable of not doing so, and that's very that just isn't their identity. So I really think the Chiefs are still the best team in the AFC. I think they will finish as the best team in the AFC. Whether they're the 1 seed or not, it doesn't matter. Like they are the team to beat in the AFC, even with the start of the season, and that hasn't changed in my opinion. But I think this is more about the Chargers than the Chiefs. Like their resiliency and to win that game proves that they are a legit playoff contender this year. And I think they've shown it throughout the first 3 weeks of playing really good games against good teams and showing out. And this was Justin Herbert's biggest win of his young career. I think it's going to build a lot of confidence for him to win that game. And I love the distribution of the ball. Herbert is not a guy that's one track minded with Keenan anymore. He is spreading that ball around and giving everybody in that offense love. And a healthy Austin Eckler completely opens up that offense. And that was a huge addition for them again to get that all flowing. So that's a really good team right there.
Yeah, my hot take, I actually don't see it as that hot of a take, but Herbert's going to win an MVP before his career is over, which again, I don't think that's a hot take necessarily. Some people might, but it will be tough going through Patrick Mahomes every single season because he ain't going anywhere in that same time frame. But he's just so damn good. I love watching him play, man. He just sits back there and slings that pill accurately with some serious power on it. But any other games? There's some quick ones, honorable mention type deals, but any other ones you want to talk about in more detail?
Huge one for the Bills. No offense to Ev, they just dominated.
We looked awful. Yeah.
After their first loss, they have just straight dominated. The Saints,
Yeah, impressive for the Saints, obviously.
Multiple possession game. And then my Colts blew one to the Titans. Carson Wentz is just playing on 2 bum ankles, just could not move around that game. Like, it was really frustrating because our defense played great. We ran the ball well, but Carson Wentz was just beat up. And honestly, he shouldn't have played, in my opinion. Like, he really shouldn't. As I was watching him play, I was getting really frustrated because it was like, I understand Eason's not good, but why are you playing Wentz right now? Like, he can't move. Like, he's on 2 bum ankles. Like, that's just, you're not going to do anything against the team, even a bad defense like that.
You're walking with cinder blocks on. I mean, you can't even like,
I was like,
put more weight on one ankle because the other one's also sprained. So
I'm just frustrated because we're legitimately, like, I don't think we're an 0-3 team, but we are 0-3. And admittedly, our schedule has been brutal at the beginning of the season, so we have some things to figure out. But I mean, the playoff hunt is very well in the picture. There's still 14 games to go, so I'm not going to freak out. But we got to get healthy. Quentin Nelson got carted off the field, so I really hope he gets back because he is the anchor of our offense. So we'll see what happens there. And one last one, the Cowboys. So huge win.
Yeah. The other one, well, I'll do the Cowboys first. I got to shout out our boy Michael Dolan, who wrote a really one of my favorite articles he's done. Obviously, he's a biased Philly Eagles guy, but a really well done article on the Eagles and kind of their young budding offense. And I loved it so much. I thought it was a great article. Shout him out. Check him out on medium.com. We'll have him on here soon again in the near future. But I was so hyped about his article. And he did point out, obviously, a lot of concerns about Hurts. You know, it wasn't one-sided. But I was like, dude, the Eagles are winning on Monday night because you guys were with me. I was so tempted to pick that upset, and I didn't. But after that article I posted in his little comment box, I was like, you know what? For my MDS boys, I don't know if you saw it, I'm switching my pick to the Eagles unofficially. And yeah, that didn't go well. The Eagles looked terrible.
I think they've proven pretty – like at least in the early season that they're the best team in the NFC East by a country mile right now.
It's not even close. Yeah. Raiders, impressive win. They keep doing it. They keep doing it.
Not necessarily an impressive win. Jacoby Brissett against Miami or with Miami. It was an overtime game.
That's a high
kind of slipped at the end. I do not buy the Raiders, but I feel like maybe I'm just trying to save face at this point because I called them a 4-13 team.
They already have hit your 3 numbers, Zach.
Yeah. Brissett looked good as dude. I'm a biased guy because he was on the Colts and he's always been a high end backup, but he has played better than Tua has at the beginning of the season. Not that he should start over Tua, but he came out there and like gave the Raiders everything and then some. Like he was running all over the field and making really good throws. And did you see that clutch touchdown at the end of the game to tie it up? Like most starters don't do that. So that was really
sick
from him. The other one was the Vikings, which you guys called. So I have to give you guys a shout out because I thought for sure Seattle would cover that. And without Dalvin Cook, the Vikings went out there and beat up on Seattle. Seattle scored 17 points. I'm like, I just don't understand Seattle. Their ceiling is as high as the ceiling can be, but their floor is like very low. And I just don't get it because I
don't get it either.
They could have beaten the Vikings by like 4 touchdowns on any given week. And then they lost by 2 scores. Like it's so strange to me.
I am pro Vikings right now and if you look back a little bit, I think, what do they have, 2 losses now, or is it just the one?
2 losses.
It's 2, but one was the Arizona game, which was just a great game all around. I thought they played pretty well. And then the first one was the Bengals in overtime on the road also. And now the Bengals look good. So that loss is looking a lot better here. I'm pro Vikings, but yeah, I think it's more about Seattle. They don't seem to play well on the road. Maybe it's just they do this like year over year, and they'll be there at the end. But at this point, they look like the 4th best team in that division. Zach?
I kind of agree. I'm still not sold on Minnesota though, because I think Minnesota, they have some defensive struggles. I mean, they have like playmakers like Everson Griffin, they've got Harrison Smith, but that defense is still kind of a question mark for me. I don't buy that. I don't buy the kind of like they're surmounting motivational hype behind the Vikings that you're starting to feel. But I still think that's Green Bay's division all day. But yeah, that's kind of like really all I have. You want to just switch over to picks and we can kind of focus on week 4 here?
Yeah, let's lock it in. Recapping week 3 right quick, boys. Like I said, we hit the parlay, but not only that, but we killed it across the board. So actually I'm on week so it looks like, and the other thing, like I mentioned last week, we got to start comparing to a benchmark being if you just picked favorites. So if you only picked favorites, you would have went 9-7, but Zach and we went 12-4 because I realized we had the exact same picks, which is ridiculous.
That's awesome.
So we went 12-4, and then look at Cy over here who beat us with a 13-3 killer week. And like I said, if you only 9 favorites won, which means Cy got, at least 4 upsets correct. So killing it over there, Cy, which again, all 3 of us are shattering the benchmark, which is like 50%, only 58% of favorites have won so far this year. And we're all in that 65% range, give or take. So Cy still is like, I think, a game behind me and 2 games behind Zach, who still has the lead on the year. But yeah, we're all doing pretty well here. So let's keep it rolling, boys. Zach, you ready to drive this thing home?
Yeah. And hey, as our good friend and future podcast guest, Kendrick Lamar says, we got to stay humble out here. I don't want anybody getting cocky. All right. Let's not blow our top.
I am cocky. I'm going to be honest with you right now.
Boys. All right. This is just the start, but I will go ahead and kick this off. Week 4. Let's keep this going. Thursday night game. We've got Jacksonville Jaguars looking for any type of win, playing in Cincinnati against the 2-1 Bengals. Right now, the spread is Cincinnati 7.5. You know what? I'm feeling extra confident here. I'm going to go ahead and kick this one off. I think Cincinnati, their offense is just continuing to get more explosive. They're continuing to get better. I think Joe Mixon is running the football really well. Joe Burrow was 14 for 18. He looks so comfortable in the pocket, throwing to his buddy Jamar Chase and company. I'm not even care about that high spread. I think Cincinnati wins, and I think they cover that game at home.
I actually like that spread. Yeah, I think they cover that easy. Cincy's good. Their defense honestly isn't as bad as it used to be either. It's not a bad defense. Cy?
I'm matching both you guys. And I actually think I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I like that number. We could maybe do a sprinkle. Little Thursday night sprinkle.
And one other thing to mention too. So statistically, teams that are favored at home on Thursday night games have a much higher percentage of actually covering that spread. Knock on wood. There was analytics that I was looking at. Shout out The Athletic. Great place to get your sports content. They had run the statistical analytics between Thursday night games and the remainder of Sunday games for home teams that have a spread advantage, and the results are off the charts. And I think the reasoning behind that, or at least what they were saying, was less prep time for the away team, especially if the team's not that great and they're not favored. It's just really, really tricky on that Thursday because they don't have an extra 2 games for prep. So just kind of food for thought, knock on wood here, and then we'll go ahead and continue to the 1 p.m. games. First one, we'll kick this over to Cy because this is a conflict of interest between Evan and I. Washington travels to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Now, the spread did open Atlanta -1, but since this has switched, I'm not sure what the Bovada odds are, but right now I'm seeing Washington -1.5 on ESPN. Kuna, kick us off.
I'm not going to pick Falcons 2 weeks in a row, so I'll take the football team this week.
Yeah, Atlanta's coming off a win. Washington's coming off an ugly loss, and yeah, we look horrible. But if you look at our schedule coming up, it's so brutal. Like if we lose this game, it's going to be so ugly. So that I have to pick them to win and cover that, obviously.
Probably the wrong day for me to wear a Kyle Pitts jersey. I've got Washington winning and covering that as well. Switching over to the next game here, the Houston Texans playing at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills carry a 16.5 spread, which is the highest spread so far in the NFL this year. Ev, I'll kick this one over to you.
I have them covering that. Yeah, sure.
Cy?
I'm going to take them winning, but I'm not confident on a cover just because some weird stuff can happen. So
Bills win, but they don't cover.
I'm not going to take a 17-point cover. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's like unreal. All right, switching over to the next game here. We got the Detroit Lions playing at the Chicago Bears. Spread right now on ESPN says they're even ball clubs. Chicago carries a 3-point spread simply because they're at home. I'll kick this one off. I think the Lions actually win here. I have a money line opportunity. I was watching the Matt Nagy offense, sputtered out of control, did nothing to give Justin Fields any type of confidence. He was sacked 9 times. Just abysmal performance and really bad coaching, in my opinion, not taking care of their rookie QB and putting him in, situations to be successful, whether it's quick slip screens, get the ball out of his hands early. They didn't do any of that. Detroit played fantastic against the Ravens, and I think they just continue to play better under Dan Campbell. So I have this money line opportunity here.
Detroit's done some nice things early. I have Detroit money line as well. Matt Nagy. After that last game, that was a you could get fired for that game kind of game, and if he loses to Detroit, peace.
I got the Bears covering and winning this game.
That's probably good.
I'm pretty happy.
Interesting. Okay. I respect that. We'll switch on over to another 1 p.m. game. Very interesting game here. So we're going to kick this over to you first. The Carolina Panthers undefeated, kind of find their first major opponent against the Dallas Cowboys. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They played the Saints earlier, but Dallas at home, and they carry a 5-point spread. Tough one. Cy, go for it.
Cowboys winning and covering.
I think this is going to be a great game. I'm here for Carolina. Obviously, McCaffrey's out, which is the biggest thing. What's that?
I said exactly. That's why.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it's still going to be a really good game, and that the Cowboys will not cover, but I'm going to say the Cowboys do win at home.
I do think the Cowboys win and cover this game, but it's actually not McCaffrey I'm concerned about. It's JC Horn. I just don't know. Don't have confidence who they're going to cover. On offense with the tandem of all these guys. Even Cedric Wilson is balling out. Dalton Schultz had a great game. And then you got the, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I don't know who's going to cover them. And Dan Quinn has really, really made that not so great defense full of injuries look way better than they probably are on paper. So I've got Dallas winning and covering there.
Real quick, guys, we never said this earlier. We got to give a shout out to DJ Moore for what he did last week.
DJ's a beast, dude.
What he did last week, he deserves a shout out. I just want to say that real quick, but let's keep.
He had like 12 targets too. I think he had 9 receptions, 8 or 9 receptions.
He had like well over 100 yards, but he was just all over the field like it was nobody's business. Like you could not cover him. He looked amazing. Yeah,
he's definitely edging his way closer to tier 1. I definitely feel like. Actually, a quick question here: do you think he has surpassed Calvin Ridley because they were drafted 1 pick between each other?
No.
I don't think he's surpassed him, but I think they're in the same tier.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right, cool. Well, switching over to the next game here, Sai, we'll let you go last. I'll go ahead and start this one off because it is the Indianapolis Colts playing in Miami. Miami carries a 1.5 spread. Now, this is difficult for me because I think the Colts are indisputably the better team. I actually will go Colts money line here, but I don't want to bet on this game at all. I want to stay away from it. Ev, I'll kick this one over to you.
I actually originally had Colts money line because eventually the Colts have to break that streak because like Sai said, they're not that bad of a team. But I also think Miami coming off a loss, they're 1-2. I think they're more of a 500 team. And that's such a low number. Quentin Nelson, if he's still out, which I suspect he will be based on how that injury looked. So I've got to go against the Colts again and take Miami.
I feel very strongly, and I don't want to jinx anything, but I feel very strongly about the Colts in this one. I think they'll win by a touchdown. We're due for one. I'm telling you guys, I got my Colts in this one.
Sounds good. All right, cool. Well, moving on to the next game here. We've got the Cleveland Browns playing in Skull County, Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be rocking in that stadium in Minneapolis. Cleveland does carry a 2-point spread. Ev, kicking this one over to you.
How about 3 straight Minnesota Viking money line picks for me as a Kirk Cousins hater? But I'm going to roll with it, man. I think the Browns, I'm not too impressed with them lately. I think the Vikings as a 1-2 team is really unfair to how they've played. So I think they're going to come up with an upset here and even out their record.
Zach, go ahead.
I've got the Browns winning and covering. I just think that defense is going to put the wide receivers at bay with Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward. They've got the best offensive line in football, and they're just going to run down the throats and control the possession and control the clock all game against Minnesota. I have Cleveland winning and covering, and it's not even close.
This is the hardest one for me so far, by far. Also, I'm surprised to hear Ab say that because Cleveland just won 26-6, and he's a big Cleveland fan. So
the Bears are trash, dude.
Still, it's something impressive. Man, this is so hard for me. I'm gonna go Minnesota. We're not Minnesota. I think Cleveland is actually the better team, but this is if I'm correct, it's in Minnesota, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking Minnesota.
Home dog.
I think these teams are pretty close to the same. I think Brown's a little bit better, but at home, I think Minnesota covers. And
That's
money line.
That's my logic. Yeah. I try to even out the records to what I think the team should be. And this one is a good example of what the Browns, I don't think, are like a 4-0 team by any means. And I don't think the Vikings are a 1-3 team. So this is a nice opportunity to even it out.
Sounds good. Next game here, we got the Giants at the Saints. Right now, the spread is New Orleans -8 at home. I think they are playing in the Superdome again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I think first game back. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. So back in the Superdome. Cy, what do you think?
I think the Giants cover. Saints win, but Giants cover.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Zach, you just reminded me that it's their first home game back, though, which should be a great atmosphere. But I'll stick with my Giants cover. Saints win, Giants cover. The Giants do keep it close. They just never win.
Yeah,
I've got the same result as you guys do. I just think, with Mac Jones, that was kind of the reason for their downfall last week, playing that Saints defense. I believe Malcolm Jenkins actually did run one back for a pick six. I think Danny Dimes actually looked pretty good in the pocket. Kind of depends on the injury situation with Darius Slayton and Shepard, obviously. But I think Danny Dimes actually has a pretty good game. But I do see New Orleans sneaking out a victory there. Switching over to the Tennessee Titans at the New York Jets. I think this is my turn to start. Playing in New York, but Tennessee does carry a 7.5 spread. I'm not overthinking this one. They laid a goose egg against that Denver Bronco defense. Now, look, Tennessee is no Denver Bronco defense, but they're also a way more advanced offense. The spread 7.5. I think Tennessee comes in, they roll over them, and I think they cover that. But Ev, I'll kick this one over to you.
Agreed.
I think they'll cover.
Okay. Well, that's good. Interesting. Another data point. All right, switching over to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Philadelphia Eagles game. Kansas City has a 7-point spread right now on ESPN.
Can I start?
Kick this one over to you. What's up?
Can I start this one? Can I start this one before you guys decide that we're never picking Kansas City ever again? Because they're gonna win by like 14 points or something, and we're not going to pick them because we refuse to pick Kansas City. But come on, man. The Eagles just lost by 20 to the Cowboys. Like, y'all really telling me that we can't pick Kansas City here? Like, you're never going to get a better line. I say this every week, and the Kansas City disappoints us. But come on, man. It's a 7-point line.
Yeah, you said this last week, and what happened?
You're right, but this is definitely on a different par than the Chargers, man.
Ev, remind the listeners of the cover statistics with the Chiefs over the last 14 games.
So I think it was 111-1, but now it's 112-1 in their last 14. But I'm with Cy, man. This is probably my favorite spread on the card.
Me too.
It's so juicy that I'm willing to say I mean, it's in Arrowhead, right? Or is it in Philly?
No, it's in Philly.
Okay. What is this? Yeah. Okay. I still like it.
I like it too, but when we go offline after the podcast, it can be hard convincing me. But hey, it is in the Matrix. I do think Kansas City wins and covers in Lincoln Financial. Moving on to the next game here. Interesting game. Our first 4 o'clock. Arizona Cardinals at the LA Rams. Right now, the Rams carry a 4.5 spread. Cy, you just kicked it off. I guess it's my turn here. This is tricky because if you look at one team in the NFL that could really, really upend that Rams persona, it's the Cardinals, because the Cardinals run such an extraordinary offense. I think the Rams win, but I don't think they cover. I think this is a field goal game, and I think this is back and forth. I see this being a game where there are multiple lead changes, and I think the Cardinals are never out of it. But I will go the Rams here. I just don't think they cover that 4.5. Ev?
Yeah, I think it's competitive as well. And so I don't think they cover. I think Arizona is a pretty good team. So
I think the Rams win, and I think they win by at least a touchdown, but I actually expect them to win by 2 possessions. They just beat the Buccaneers by 2 possessions, and the Buccaneers are definitely better than the Cardinals in the sense of a holistic team. I think the Rams will win by 2 possessions.
Okay. Sounds good. Moving over to this one here, an NFC West matchup, Seattle Seahawks playing at the 49ers. 49ers just dropped at home. So, obviously looking to kick that back here. San Francisco carries a 2.5 spread. Ev, you start us off here.
How about the NFC West games this weekend?
Yeah.
Should be fun, man. I think San Francisco wins in cover. I think they look like the better team, and they're playing at home here and coming off a loss. I think they play well.
Si?
I'm going to pick San Francisco. I think they'll get a little bit healthier on the running back core, but let's be honest. We know Seattle. This could be one of those games where they decide to play well and win by like 2 touchdowns. But I'm taking San Francisco.
Sorry, fellas. I got Seattle money line here. I just can't see Russell Wilson going 1-3, and I think Pete Carroll's drawing something up special. So I've got Seattle there. Switching over to another very interesting game with a very interesting spread. I will start this one off. Baltimore Ravens playing at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos carry a 1-point spread in Invesco Field. This is a very interesting game. The Broncos look good, but when you look at their opponents are a combined 0-9 this season. I don't know if you guys knew that statistic or not. So, wow. But I also don't necessarily believe in the Ravens. I think this is a money line scenario for Baltimore, but I'm still kind of going back and forth on it. Si, I'll kick it over to you.
Bro, we are never going to get a better line for the Ravens. And the only reason we're getting this line is because the Broncos are 3-0 against bad teams, and the Ravens just had a bad game against the Lions, which they ended up winning by 1. So at least it would have been even. I am so in on Baltimore on this one. This is my second favorite spread of the week for me. I really believe Baltimore is going to go, especially with how close the last one is. I really think they're going to go out there and win this game. Denver's defense has been good, though. I'm not going to take that away from them, but I really think Baltimore will step up this game.
Agreed. This is a layup opportunity to take, in my opinion. I mean, it's a fairly close line, so you're not getting Green Bay plus 160 money, but you will get positive money on it. And yeah, I still think Denver is a very average team. I don't think they're a bad team, but like you said, they haven't beaten anybody. And Judy is still out, obviously. I don't think they're going to be able to do much on offense. And the Ravens are a little hot and cold right now, but coming off a cold game, I expect them to have a hot game. And obviously we've seen what they can do. They can beat the friggin' Chiefs. So I'm definitely very in on a Baltimore money line opportunity.
Very interesting. Well, switching over to another AFC North team that we've already talked about today, the Pittsburgh Steelers playing in Green Bay in Lambeau for the final 425 game. The spread is Green Bay 6.5. Si, we'll start this one with you. I guess it's time for all of us to see how confident we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. If Green Bay wins by 7, we cash out here. Is this something you feel confident in, Si?
I think Green Bay wins by 7 just because I don't know about Pittsburgh's health. I don't know if they're going to get their receivers back. And even if they do, Green Bay has looked like the better team. I think they win by a touchdown.
I have them covering as well. It's not one I necessarily love, but I do have them covering.
So, I just admitted on the podcast earlier that I don't think Pittsburgh, is a winning team this year, but something about them playing the Buffalo Bills really well kind of makes me nervous. I feel like Pittsburgh, they play up and down to the level of competition, and that does worry me in this game. Now, albeit I do have the Packers covering 6.5. I think that if this were 7.5, I would not be so kind to that spread, but just the fact this is under a touchdown, I'm willing to kind of do that as well. Switching over to the 8:20 game on Sunday, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing in New England. Brady's back. Brady versus Belichick. I cannot wait for this game, to be honest. Ev, we'll kick this one over to you to start us off here.
I neither can wait. I cannot. I'm so excited for this to happen. Bucks by 50. I don't care what the number was. I'm taking them to cover. Tom will run up the score on this man. Bucks by 50.
Number is 6.5, and I'm with Ev. I do think that the Buccaneers will cover a touchdown simply because I think they're disappointed with last week's results. Si?
I want so badly to pick the Patriots to win, but they're not going to. I think they cover, though. I think the Patriots are going to cover. I think Tampa Bay wins, but I think the Patriots are going to cover. I don't think Bill Belichick will have a better coaching game in his career than he will on this one, because I think there's just going to be so much hey man, like don't forget what I did for you to become, what people would say or argue is the GOAT. Like I think Bill Belichick's going to coach his ass off.
It goes both ways, that's for sure.
I like that. I think that's very viable. Like I could very well see this be like a 3-4 point game. Final game, Monday Night Football, AFC West matchup. The Las Vegas Raiders playing at Sophie Stadium against the Chargers, fresh off that Kansas City win. Right now, the spread is 3.5 the Chargers' way. Go ahead and kick this one over, Cy. What do you think?
I'm gonna take the Chargers winning or covering because it's in Charger Stadium. That's otherwise I would probably not take the spread, but at home, them winning by over 3.5, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I can go ahead and kick kind of intersect. I agree with Cy's assessment. I think the Chargers win and cover, and I think this is the first sobering game for Derek Carr. I foresee, a pick or two in this game, and I think that he gets confused by the defensive schemes that the Chargers front runs. I think Bosa gets after him.
I think this is going to be a really fun game. I'm going to change my pick from earlier, and I'm going to take Las Vegas to win here. I think the Chargers are still going to be a little hot and cold, and I'm going to ride the wave here. I'm going to ride the wave for another week and see if Vegas can pull out another. I think I picked them. Have I picked them every week too? Because I picked them to beat Baltimore. No, we picked them to lose to Pittsburgh. Damn it. But anyway, I'm going to pick them.
Solid.
We'll look forward to connecting next next week to talk about how the picks went and everything like that. But until then, this is Mondays Down South. Thanks for listening once again.